Hello, this is the fourth in a series of 6 videos that I'm making in which I try to explain how the adjectives work in Latin. In this fourth video, I want to cover the superlative degree, which is a technical name for how to say the biggest, the strongest, the fattest, the greatest, the least, and others of that sort. We'll begin with the base form of the adjective, and this will be very easy for those of you who play a musical instrument. Let's start with longus, which is nominative masculine singular from the group 1 nouns. It means long. We break it apart in this way. Take off the termination from the stem, but unlike with the comparative adjectives where you throw the termination away, let's hold on to this bit. Between these two parts, you then sandwich issim, and at last you move them back together. Longissimus, the longest, or very long, though I do run ahead on that. Before I run ahead in earnest, let's have a look at the forms of adjectives of the superlative degree. As ever, we start by setting up the table with singular and plural, and with the individual case endings, nominative, accusative, genitive, dative, ablative. I could, perhaps I should, put in the vocative case, but I won't. The vocative forms are not very often seen, and I think I can leave you to recognise them as and when you see them. We move to the nominative masculine singular, longissimus, to the nominative feminine singular, longissima, and to the nominative neuter singular, longissimum. And if you were paying attention to what I said in my admittedly rather long video on the positive degrees of comparison, you will know very well what these numbers 2, 1, 2 mean. I will remind you. A 2, 1, 2 adjective is one that mimics in its terminations the forms of masculine nouns of the second declension, of feminine nouns of the first declension, and of neuter nouns of the second declension. 2, 1, 2, useful, indeed valuable shorthand, and since I have already described this as a 2, 1, 2 adjective, I see no point in going one at a time through the various cases. Let's again have them all in one hit. There they are, and as I keep saying, in a way that is not intended to be condescending, if you don't know these endings, if these endings are in any sense unfamiliar, or I'll go further than that, if these endings are not burned by now into your memory, you must go back to your grammar tables and learn them. Because these red endings are of fundamental importance in Latin. If you do not know them, if you are not perfectly familiar with them, if you cannot recognize each and every one of them on sight, then you are not learning the language effectively. But there are the forms for adjectives of the superlative degree. Let's turn to how they are used. Have a look at this. Rex laetissimus erat. This has 2 possible meanings. The first is that he was the happiest king. The second is that the king was very happy. Rex laetissimus erat can mean either of those. Whenever you come across a superlative adjective used in this way, you need to stop and interrogate it. English has different forms. We have one way of saying that he was the happiest king. We have another way of saying that he was very happy. Indeed, you can see them there on the slide. Unfortunately, Latin, which is a somewhat more compressed language than English, has only that one form, laetissimus, and you, the reader, have to do some of the work in deciding, based, I suppose, on the context, which of those two possible meanings rex laetissimus erat has. Here is another use, again very important, and I suppose idiomatic. It is used a lot. You take quam plus the superlative, and it means as whatever as possible. Here's an example. Quam longissimus, as long as possible. Quam tristissimus, as sad as possible. I think you get the idea. And these are the main uses of the superlative adjectives in Latin. All I would do before moving on is take you back to the top of the slide. He was the happiest king. The king was very happy. Rex laetissimus erat could mean either. Context is king. You need to look carefully at that sort of construction to see what the writer was trying to say. Let me pass, though, from a set of forms that is used in the overwhelming majority of superlative adjectives and look at some of the variations from the regular norm. Here is the rule. It's worth stating the rule, though the rule may be worthless without illustrations, but together they are important. Yes, here is the rule. When you have a positive adjective ending er in the masculine nominative, do without issim for the superlative, but add rim in all genders. That is in itself an opaque rule, but, as I said, when supported by appropriate illustrations, it is an important rule which is worth bearing in mind. The kinds of adjective we have in mind are miser, or wretched, pulcher, or beautiful, celer, or fast. Let's see how these, with their alternative forms for the superlative, go together in a table. Here it is. It's a standard 2-1-2 adjective, but notice how it works. Not pulcherissimus, pulcherissima, pulcherissimum, but pulcherimus, pulcherima, pulcherimum, and so on through the other forms. Do you want to learn those? Do you want to commit them to memory? Or do you want to be aware of their existence and therefore ready for when you encounter them? I won't make a suggestion. I leave that to your own judgment and your own habits of learning a language. I'll pass to the second set of variations. There are 6 adjectives that end with illis in the nominative. Facilis, easy. Difficilis, difficult. Gracilis, slender. Humilis, low. Similis, like. Dissimilis, unlike. To form the superlative of these, to say easiest, most difficult, slenderest, lowest, most like, most unlike, and so on, to form the superlatives of these adjectives, you do this. You take the stem of the adjective, and here is gracil, and to this you add lim, like so. Gracilem, followed by the usual terminations, but here they all are, put together in a table. Again, I don't need to dwell on the various forms because it is a standard 2-1-2 adjective, but have a look at how these variations work. Not gracilissimus, gracilissima, gracilissimum, but gracillimus, gracillima, gracillimum, and so on. Again, do you want to memorize these new forms, or do you want to be aware of them and therefore prepared for as and when you encounter them? Once again, I leave that to your judgment. Of course, there is always more that can be said about any aspect of Latin grammar. There are occasional irregularities, for example, but such irregularities as do exist are not considerable, and if you know these, the regular forms, you will be able to recognize the occasional variations from the regular norm. This then is all I have to say about the superlative adjectives in Latin. I hope you found this video useful, and I thank you for having watched it.